work should be fun. Just because you're trying to look professional and just because there's money involved doesn't mean you have to put on a mask and be someone that you're not. But at the same time, it's also important to recognize that work is work and there is transactions occurring, and it's important to be mindful of other values and other perspectives. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Creatives Journal podcast. I am so stoked to be talking to you guys today. We have a really good topic, and it's a great Sunday, as I usually record, and I'm excited to dive into it. Today's topic is all about mastering client communication in creative business. And as my career has unfolded, this is something that I think not enough people talk about in the industry. And a lot of it comes down to your personal values, what kind of working relationships you want to have, and we'll get through the four main topics I want to touch on. But recently, I was featured in a Creative Boom article. If you guys have never read Creative Boom, it is one of the top design, branding, creative blogs and online newsletters in the UK. And I've been in touch with their lead editor, Katie Cowan, Katycowan, and I've been following her on LinkedIn for a very long time, and she's just an incredibly special person. And one of the comments on this thread that she mentioned on LinkedIn was actually featured in her article, and they tagged me and MMG Design in their article as well, which is super cool. So I wanted to make an entire podcast kind of diving into the details and intricacies of client communication in creative business and what are some things that you should be doing and looking out for, because I know a lot of you are probably just starting, and even if you're not, some of the things I've learned through trials and tribulation and definitely failures, that there is a lot of intricacies in social communication, especially when it comes to business or anything, any kind of working relationship that is professional, or as you might see as this episode unfolds, unprofessional. But without further ado, we're going to get right into it. So the first thing I want to kind of touch on and unpack is to embrace authentic communication. And this is important because as you get lost in kind of the weeds of how you navigate communication styles, it's also to remember who you are as a person and how you would interact normally. And I'm very loose on this concept of your true self or your authentic self, because we all kind of change jackets depending on the context of the social setting. So if we're in a professional relationship, like we are talking about now with creative business, say you sell graphic design services, you're communicating with your clients a lot via calls or on clarity calls for sharing designs, sharing your process, then you can be more or less professional in that context, depending on the personality of your branding and what you want your business to represent. If you want to position yourself as more of a creative partner rather than just a service as a vending machine, then you can feel free to inject more personality into it. But it's important to remain true to who you are and what you value in communication. So don't try and be someone that you're not, i.e., use words that you're not comfortable with, or in an attempt to look more professional than you actually are. Don't go into a call doing research trying to find lexicon and so forth and language that you would use just to impress this client. But also be mindful of the fact that you want to come in prepared. So maybe there's certain things that you would want to avoid saying, whether it's in political communication or common trends. Maybe you know at the outset there are fundamental differences in your opinions. Then you can feel free to just not address those. I mean, that's totally fine. Not all of my clients. I mean, I live in near. I do a lot of business near Columbus, Ohio, and there's not always a strong political alignment of values with some of the clients that I work with, the bigger ones especially, more in the inner city. And once it comes to that, it's usually is a mutual understanding of you just don't have to give your opinion on stuff, and that's totally okay. Not everyone that you work with has to have the exact same values. I think everyone has their own even if they're clients, even if not everyone that you work with has to be aligned with you totally on everything. Where I think that crosses the line is when they're outright against, common liberties. And the good thing about running your own business is that you can totally be the you totally set the standards of how far or not far you're willing to go on either of these sides. You make the rules, you choose who you work with, but at the same time, you don't want to be someone that you're not, and also on the other side, weeding out people just because of small things that won't probably make a huge difference in a working relationship. So that's the first one, is to embrace authentic communication. A second tip I want to talk on is to manage communication channels. Um, this is a this is something that I really don't think a lot of creatives talk about. Is how do you communicate? You want to be efficient. You want to be collaborative. You want it to be something that's just not back and forth all day. Um, I check email way more than I should, and that is a personal flaw I've been trying to work on because I mean, I'm sure creatives can relate. When you're in your browser, you're on your laptop all day, there's always just so quick access, especially in this browser I'm using. It's called Arc browser. Email is just right away all the times. It's a little preview snippet. You get a notification, which I should probably turn off now that I talk about it out loud. But it's just you have to constrain collaboration and also have a mutual understanding of setting boundaries of when you can be in touch and when you cannot be in touch. So looking forward, it's probably best to communicate at the beginning of the day because that's globally speaking, depending on time zones and so forth, it's most commonly accepted to be in communication at the beginning of the day. That way, if any variance can kind of be accounted, throughout as the day goes on. Um, as far as specific communication channels, I would always start on email. Usually, if you're doing business, then a lead has come through via email. Email is, far and away recognized as the most transactional business channel. So it's always safe to start on email, and you'll kind of see the themes between all of these topics in client communication is that you show your professional cards first, and then as the other person kind of dials it back, spoiler alert, then you can reveal more personal sides of yourself. And another big topic to touch on too, not straining too far off of the second topic, but is work should be fun. Work should 100% be fun. And just because you're trying to look professional and just because there's money involved doesn't mean you have to put on a mask and be someone that you're not. But at the same time, it's also important to recognize that work is work and there is transactions occurring, and it's important to be mindful of other values and other perspectives. So you want to start in a more professional mindset and a more professional approach, and then over time kind of gradually tear it back. And how that applies to communication styles, or excuse me, communication channels, is you start with email, and you can always feel free to offer a more personal channel, whether that's Slack, if you guys use Slack, Gmail. It's super easy nowadays. If you use Google Workspace, you can offer them, a chance to move over to Google Chat, which is more accessible, more freedom, and it's a lot easier to share back and forth. You could also offer iMessage and other more digital cellular communications. Phone calls, you can always I would view this kind of on a hierarchy. I would say the most intimate form of communication is voice messages that are direct. And you can even do this on Google Chat too. So if you get to a relationship where you can have a relationship with a client that's very personal like that, and they aren't abusing it, then I think that's the gold standard. If you have expectations, you have a shared expectation on what communication looks like, and you are direct from the outset that, hey, I need your input on these things. And I always say with every client, the more the better, because I know I want to control the controllables on my end. And if the client is offering me more stuff and a creative project, then I can always, filter out the good and the bad. But if they're not giving me enough, then that leaves a lot out of my control, and you have to take more liberty on design decisions, and um, that can increase the scope of the project if you do something wrong. And it's always good to just say the more the better. and make yourself as accessible as possible from the beginning, I believe, and eventually, like I said, tailor that back and as become more or less professional as you see fit. The third topic I want to touch on, and this is kind of relating to the first one about authenticity, is to focus on personal values. And Grace Walker is kind of the forefront in my mind in this. I'm currently enrolled in her course, Fast Forward Freelance. I've watched it twice now. Great course. You guys want to check it out? Go to fastforwardfreelance.com. Not sponsored, just a very strong advocate, unpaid. Um, but Grace Walker mentions in her course, it was chapter 3, I believe, titled "Winning Work." She says to put all of her, she puts all of her clients through a vibe check. And Grace is very self-aware in the sense she's been through, and she shares a lot of her past experiences in the course with writing proposals and projects that went badly. And I definitely have stories on that. And maybe one day we'll dig through the archives and we'll talk about a recent project I had that did not go well. But and there's a lot of value in sharing that stuff. And if you focus on personal values, um, backtracking a little bit, Grace says to run all of clients through a vibe check. Um, and this doesn't tie in one to one with personal values, but I would always just have some kind of filter before starting a project, whether in terms of communication or in their personal values, to just say, not approach it with a strict scarcity mindset. Because, oh my God, guys, like, I am so guilty of this, and I know a lot of other creatives are as well. As soon as a lead comes in, it's this feeling, rush of excitement of dopamine, like, oh my gosh, this thing I'm building, this business, it is real because people are recognizing it and they want to work with me. But that doesn't mean that you want to work with them just because they came to you. You've got to have some kind of filter, some kind of roadblock, some kind of barrier, some sort of barrier to entry to you, because this is why you started a business, is to be the filter, to be the person to do what you want. It's why we all got into business, to have more creative freedom, to take on interesting projects and to do awesome work with people that we are excited to work with and are fun to work with, and just create great relationships. And that's how you build a great career. And as my career unfolds and I get more opportunities, I want to always have some kind of vibe check or filter to say, hey, okay, I have an opportunity to work with this person, but is it something I really want to do? And detach the monetary side of the decision making from this process, because it's really important and it can 100% cloud judgment. So that's the third topic, is to kind of just have, as Grace calls it, a vibe check. And I know it sounds so simple and so unsophisticated, but so few of us actually do it. We feel like we get a lead for a project and scarcity mindset takes over, and it's like, okay, oh man, I really hope this client is cool. I hope, I hope they're chill and that we can work together well and that they understand and they value creativity. That stuff should be a prerequisite for them working with you. It shouldn't be something that you discover out later. So have a vibe check, have some kind of filter in place, and use that at the outset of every project. And the fourth topic I want to talk about, and this was where we were featured in Katie's article. And by the way, guys, if you guys want to check out that article, it is called, let me pull it up real quick, creativeboom.com. When work meets play, setting boundaries in professional and creative professional relationships. Navigating work relationships and maintaining professionalism can sometimes prove tricky. We asked the creative community for advice on finding the happy balance. Written by Katie Cowan. Like I said, we'll leave a link to this in the show notes, and you guys should 100% check it out and check out all of Creative Boom's articles, because they seriously kill it, you guys. They're a must read for me, and they're a must follow for me on LinkedIn. So, back to the show. Um, Adapting to different communication styles. And this is where our quote was taking. You want to know what communication style your clients value and how to make the relationship the best you can for them and yourself too, but mostly for them, because they're investing in you. And I know I said that, you get to choose who you do business with, but these are people that, if they're choosing to work with you, all things considered, they believe in you and they believe in your ability to get them results. So they should be able to set the determinants of the relationship. Now, that doesn't mean that they're choosing, you're the one that gets to choose whether or not you have a relationship. But once that relationship starts, a lot of it is largely determined by them and what kind of method they value. If they don't value a friend relationship, then it's okay to be more professional. And I think, and I'm talking from experience here, even though, I am quite young. If you work with someone for a long period of time, you will everyone has a personal side of them, and if enough repeated exposure, you will get to see a sense of humor, a sense of who they are, what they value, and always be listening for these things as well. I was talking to my friend Michael George at church this morning, and he, in passing, mentioned one of his favorite restaurants. It's an Indian restaurant in Dublin. And as soon as I got home, looked it up, and I'm gonna get a gift card because we're going out to coffee next Saturday. And just small things like that. Like that was very top of mind for me. But small things like that is what's gonna set you apart, and it's what makes a communication and client relationship all the more special. So small things like that, especially in repeated exposure, remembering the small things about your clients and then using those to make the most effective communicative relationship possible. Another thing, and this is our direct quote in the article, was um, I have some, and this is what I said, and I'm pretty proud of it, but it says, I have some clients I address specifically as ma'am and sir, and others where our chats are filled with emojis and gifs and mildly inappropriate humor. I think it comes down to three things: personality, the kind of working relationship these people value, and how you brand yourself. Another thing, Liz Mosley is someone that taught me that personal branding in your agency, in your business, whether it's just your own freelance business, comes down to so much more than colors and typography and tone. And you guys know this as creatives. It comes down to tone of voice and other things outside of just visuals, like tone of voice, mood, whether or not you choose to swear in your branding, or whether or not you choose to use emojis in your type. All these little small micro elements are what makes up your brand. So it's really important to cater to those and be mindful of them because you're representing yourself. And whether you like it or not, you're always marketing 24/7. So kind of have that in the back of your mind when you're communicating with clients is to keep keep it in mind. And my father used to always tell me, remember your last name. So remember your name, remember how what you're saying to your clients makes you, how that reflects on you. And like I said in the beginning, one of the most important things to remember is that work should be fun. And if you should get the feeling from this person that you're working with clients, that it's not fun for you and communication with them is draining, then like I said, you're the one that sets the conditions for whether or not you work together. But once you start working together, you should always prioritize their preferred communication style first. So to kind of sum up, our four topics today were to embrace authentic communication, to manage communication channels, to focus on personal values and having a vibe check or filter, and to adapt to different communication styles and show more or less personality as the working relationship ensues. So that's going to wrap it up for today. This was a really fun one to talk about. Thanks again to Katie Cowan and the team at Creative Boom for featuring our quote in the article. Like I said, we'll link to them below. And one more thing I want to mention to you guys. If you guys are loving the show, if you guys are enjoying the podcast, feel free to leave a rating or 5-star review on whatever platform you're doing. And share it with a friend too. I know that's not something you do very often, but that also honestly just goes such a long way. And we are on entry 39 now, I believe. So we're creeping up there to 40 almost, which is absolutely crazy. So if you guys want to become the best creative entrepreneur you can be, and you are driven, you want to be successful, then keep tuning into the show, and we'll keep providing values and tips and tricks that will help you on your way. One more thing to mention, a little bit of housekeeping before we sign off, is the MMG Design Notion database of books for business owners. We are adding to this every single week. It's a comprehensive database. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, if you want to start a reading habit, it's hands down the best way to get started. I go through every week and I add a new book into this article, into this database, which you can download for free and copy into your own database. Even if you don't know how to use Notion, it's super simple. But the latest book we are adding in is the book I'm listening to right now, $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. And in each of these entries, we class it by all these different parameters, which you can search and filter. The places where you can download it online for the cheapest price, the difficulty level, main summaries, 3 key takeaways, all in this database for free. And that will be linked down below. It's ever growing. I think it's currently at 20 to 25 books. And it's just a great way to get started. And you can download that and duplicate it into your own template if you want to become a better business owner and get better at your habit of reading and growing your mind through all these awesome sources. So this has been entry number 39 of the Creative Journal podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. All about client communication styles and nuances involved. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Peace.